I'm Charlie Bright of Gold Derby, and today I'm talking with Benjamin Bratt, who plays Parko Delgado on the HBO Max series DMZ. First thing I want to ask you, and I think this is probably the most critical question I will ask you, is do you think you'd be able to rise to being a leader in some sort of dystopian future?
That's the most important question of the interview, huh? Who knows? The fact of the matter is, and this is what I really loved about the story, is that due to the extreme circumstances, and you could find this in any good story, it's when circumstances press upon you enough where it forces you outside of your own perception of yourself and into actions that you might not have otherwise undertaken, where true leaders rise to the occasion. And that certainly holds true for the main protagonist of the story, Alma Ortega. She's merely on a search for her son, really out of a love quest, really, to reconnect with her boy, who she lost some 8 years prior. Little did she know in the few days of her visitation in the DMZ that she would soon be a candidate for governor. So extreme circumstances put things in our path that we might not have expected. Personally, whether or not I have the capability to do that, that remains to be seen. It's tough enough being a dad, and a good one at that. It takes a lot of focus, a lot of concentration, a lot of work, and a lot of invested time and love. But it is my favorite focus at the moment.
Did you have any apprehension about playing a character like Parko?
No, not initially. In fact, this was a role that I lobbied for when I first sought a meeting to sit down with Ava and Roberto to talk to them about it. I was under the impression that they were interested in someone else, but happily, Ava was very familiar with some of my independent film work, particularly a film that my brother and I produced called La Misión, which he wrote and directed as well. And because of that familiarity, she understood prior to the meeting that I had the wherewithal to play someone this, I think, on the page, obviously diabolical. The good news is Roberto Patino, through the craft of his storytelling and character portrayal, put threads of humanity into a character that could otherwise come off as two-dimensional. So, with all that said, when I first read the script, I had not any idea where the series was going to go. We were only given the pilot, and I thought, this is a larger-than-life character, a huge persona. It's fun to step into the shoes of someone like that, especially because it's so far away from what I am. But I had no idea how dark it was going to turn. And that's, to your question, it was at that point, after we completed filming the pilot, and there was some time before we were greenlit to a limited series because of the pandemic. I think the powers that be didn't understand how we would move forward with such a large scoped show, hundreds of extras, et cetera. But once they made the decision, and Roberto had to condense his show Bible of 3 to 5 years or whatever it was that he had worked out into only 3 additional episodes, a tough task at that, and he delivered them. That's when taking on the role gave me pause, but I was already in, right? I had already shot the pilot. But when I read those 3 subsequent episodes, it took me probably about a week to pick up the phone, and he and I have become very good friends since then, and I've since been very upfront with him about it. But when I finally called him, I shared with him that I didn't realize that Parko Delgado, for as magnetic a character as he is on the page, I did not realize that he was this close to sociopathy, that he was someone who really would put anything and everything that he loves, if he's incapable of that, in the path of being stepped right over in his pursuit to power, including putting his own family members and children in physical harm or at risk. So that really gave me pause. But Roberto's smart. He said, look, that's one way to look at it. Another way to look at it is that Parko Delgado, for better or for worse, is a product of his environment. He himself is a veteran of the wars in the Middle East. The way he conducts his business as leader of the Spanish Harlem Kings, the way he rules is by force, is by might, is by whoever's strongest. And he learned that well as a soldier. Even as a soldier, learning that the futility of war, he can't help but bring back all of the machinations of war and the ways of going about keeping control of the people, right back to a form that's all too familiar to him.
So this actually feeds into the next question I wanted to ask. Were there any, I know it might be weird to say positive aspects of Parko, but were there any sort of like aspects like that you tried to latch onto in order to make him a more well-rounded character?
Yeah, good question. Yeah, I thought to really succeed at pulling this character off, being outrageous and physically impulsive and even violent on screen is actually pretty easy from an acting point of view. What's a lot more difficult in the face of those characteristics for a character is to find their essential humanity. And at the end of the day, this is a family saga, really. And so the relationships that Parko Delgado has with the other characters in the story, particularly with his son, Skell, there's connective emotional tissue in those relationships that I find very relatable. Any story that has, emotional fracture between fathers and sons is something very personal for me, something I could very much relate to, and I think a lot of audience members can relate to. So that was kind of the way in for me to make him someone that, if not was acceptable in his behavior, that whose actions were understandable given the environment that he came from. It's clear to me, and if it wasn't clear on the page, it was something I was very intent on making clear, was that he has a true and a strong love for his boy, and yet he is so blinded in his own personal pursuit of power and maintaining it that he doesn't realize he's sacrificing the one person he loves the most in his pursuit of it. And at the end, in a way, he kind of emerges as a tragic figure, because it's not until he's quite Shakespearean, I think, in that sense, in that in his rise to power, in seeking to attain it, everything he cares about, his boy, perhaps whatever remnant feeling there is that he has for Alma Ortega, and most certainly his community, all those things that give him a sense of identity, they've been taken away from him. Or more aptly put, by his own actions, he has been removed from them. And that's tragic. And you perhaps get a glimpse of that only as he's crossing the bridge onto the other side, heading towards a world and a life that will be clearly absent of those things that he cares about.
One of the other starkest things about this series is the production design of it. And this may seem like a bit of a silly question, but does that sort of like having that sort of like heightened, very stark production design, does that sort of thing help bring you closer to the character and the situation and the situations that character finds themselves in?
Yeah, it certainly can. I think it's probably at this point no secret that for many different reasons we ended up shooting a very New York story somewhere in the deep South in Atlanta. And with all of the craftsmanship at work, from the writing to the directing to the set design to the execution of the visual effects, the performances certainly, it's all the trickery that goes on behind the curtain that hopefully sweeps people up into the story, where the visual, trappings of what you're speaking about, they're important to the story, but they're essentially not ultimately the thing that we're focusing on. It is a tough sell because New York is very unmistakable in its skyline, and it's immense and expansive. And to have done it in its most cinematic way probably would have costed, far more than was spent on this. But with that said, I think it was really smart of Roberto to, as he likes to say, tighten up the aperture a little bit and really focus on the story at hand, which is not necessarily the state of Manhattan as it is within the tale, but the lives that are struggling to survive and thrive even on that landscape. And so you have a tale that really can be told on an immense canvas, and yet the primary focus is on the people, their faces, and their emotional interactions.
One other thing I wanted to ask about is, since we are an awards site, I was revisiting something and I saw that you were part of one of my favorite wins. In 2006, you got to present the SAG Award to your Law and Order co-star Esapatha Murkison for Lackawanna Blues, and I was just wondering, what was that experience like, getting to present her with such an amazing honor?
It was an unforgettable moment. She, on that show, became my big sister. We remain very close. And as I recall, that was the third in the trifecta of awards. She had already won, I think, the Emmy, and she had already won the Golden Globe. And so the SAG Award was, I think, the third in a row, a veritable hat trick. And just to be able to say her name and to present the award to her when she walked up, unforgettable. And obviously well-deserved. She was so beautiful in her craft, like truly masterful in her portrayal in that story, and it was well-deserved.
Were you prepared for her to probably get the biggest laugh of the night when she thanked her divorce lawyers?
Oh, I had forgotten that. I don't want to speak to that because that's her business, but she is certainly one to turn real life into humor. She plays a lot of serious characters, and she's really good at it. But what a lot of folks don't know is she's incredibly funny and bawdy, and just loves to have a good laugh. She's a dear person, an incredible woman, and part of my family forever.
Well, Benjamin, thank you so much for joining us. We wish you all the best over this award season. And to all of our viewers, please like, share, subscribe, and don't forget to go to goldderby.com to make your Emmy predictions. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Charlie. See you.